Yes, we are. Okay. Here we go. I don't have a lot tonight. Should move pretty quickly, mostly because I've been distracted. So please let me know if you have some pending items that I'm not getting to. First up is the minutes. Any corrections, additions to the minutes? One thing I wasn't sure about, I thought. Well, that's odd. I had all these action items, but I don't see them anymore. Oh, wait a minute. October. No, this is October. That's right. October? No, we want November. Hang on. You guys can hear me, right? Okay. Yeah, hang on. I just got incredibly quiet. There we go. This looks more like it. One of the questions I had was, I assigned it to, oh, I guess it's okay. Helen can't make it tonight because she's at a board meeting. No, I don't have any questions. I think I'm good on this. All right, so any objections to approve them as written? Great. Onwards. Any prospects for Rockport?
I mean, in terms of members, no, we didn't. We actually, we'll talk, but we met on Sunday, the little Rockport contingency, and
that's a little later.
We did not talk about people.
Okay. What about Mr. Rose?
He's Appleton.
Oh, he is. Ah. All right.
So no.
No, he'd probably be somewhere else anyway. Let's see. Moving on to subcommittee reports, Maritime, I have not had a chance to circle back with Jeremy or Audra on the next steps to go out to bid for Maritime and the Sure Tail extension, but I will do that. I wanted to give them a chance to deal with some of this other stuff and start up that process again. I believe that probably, isn't the new, Allison, isn't the new code enforcement officer starting now?
Unfortunately, he has resigned.
That's good material against Jeremy. That's great.
that is, if you wanted something on Jeremy, that'd be usable probably. Yeah, he's gone back to Rockland. It was I think an amicable breakup, just realized better fit as assistant code officer in Rockland.
So that's
already
the reason I ask is
one of my friends, his whole family were my people. I love that family, and Wyatt was one of my great guy, but it was a big stretch. I was surprised, but
yeah, I think we're really excited to have some young go-getter, but I shouldn't say anything bad about the job, but that's got to be a really challenging job for many reasons. But
it obviously puts the pressure back on Jeremy too. So thanks.
Yeah.
So
the office is a little bit in terms of like the word bandwidth has been used like 20 times every conversation about like just the bandwidth of the town office staff. So trying to keep requests reasonable is helpful.
Yep.
That seems
and it's okay
everywhere.
Yeah.
Schools are that. I mean, like
Right.
Maybe it's the wake-up call that we all need to like just slow down.
Totally.
So was this just too big a job? Did he came from
It doesn't matter.
assistant
It doesn't matter,
position?
Nita. It doesn't matter. That's not a discussion for us.
Yeah,
It doesn't
and
matter. It
I know
doesn't
I
matter.
know it was a friendly thing. That's all.
Yeah, I'm reining it in. It doesn't
Thank
matter. The next up is, but I will follow up. That's a commitment to follow up. Just gonna make a note of that. What we're advocating for is to get them out to bid. That's the idea.
Hmm.
But that means you have to put together a bid package, which is a lot of work. The next topic is the Riverwalk drainage, particularly at the Lions Club. And I did unofficially, casually meet with Dave St. Laurent, and we sort of scratched our heads and looked at it and scratched our heads and looked at it and think we have an idea of what to do. The next thing is to actually, process-wise, is to get Beth in the loop on this, because Parks and Rec are the ones who actually manage the Riverwalk. So that's the next step. Going to be in touch with Beth, and hopefully she agrees that the work needs to be done, and we'll get her done. Let's see. And Margot, did you say you had a little meeting with Linda about?
Well, actually not with
90.
Linda, with our 4 Rockport contingency. So Heidi, Helen, Linda, and I all met Sunday morning. And we looked at really some priorities.
Just a second. What happened to Heidi?
Yeah, what happened to Heidi?
She was here for a second, wasn't she?
More than a second.
Things get, you know.
She was just over here too. She was running a little late and like hadn't made dinner yet. She told me that she might not be able to
Stick
get
with
on
it.
or stay on, but we'll monitor for her.
Thank you for that, Allison. I thought maybe she was trying to get back in.
I'm paying attention.
Margot, you were saying Heidi, you, and
So the
Linda?
question is, do we want to just kind of talk about all the things right now, which are sort of in different places within the agenda, or should we wait until?
I think, no, you can go. I think that's fine. Go for
Okay.
it. Good flow.
So the pieces that we talked about were really, we had several sort of looking at the overall landscape. You know, we have this old comprehensive plan. We have some pieces that we know we may be able to leverage now just because some things are happening. And then we have some to-dos. And so sort of starting with the to-dos, you know, the whole Route 90 piece, we know that there's some roadblocks simply because of Route 90 being the kind of corridor that it is. So we are setting up a meeting for the 4 of us to talk to Patrick Adams and to see whether we can creatively think about some workarounds to get us to be able to think about a walkway that would go, or a sidewalk that would go from the high school down to Route 1. And, you know, which side it is or which side it isn't, you know, that's all to be determined. But really to see, is there any way to creatively think about Route 90? Because in conjunction with that, one of the things that came out of the summit last January, pre-pandemic world, was, you know, thinking about what Rockland is doing and then what is happening with Round the Mountain and all the Highland trails and all those pieces is a real critical connector. If you wanted to go from Rockland all the way through the Camden Hills, would be some sort of crossover on Route 90. So looking at this end, the school end of Route 90 is a strategic place, but that could also set precedent for something we could do at another place along Route 90. And so Patrick seemed like the man to talk to, and at least, get an idea of who to go to next. So that kind of looks at the bigger vision of connectivity. We then looked at really needing to, and Jeff, glad you're here, really needing to have once we have sort of this bigger piece, a really pointed question about how is it that projects start happening in Rockport that haven't had sort of that pass through with pathways. And so thinking particularly about the sewer line going up to Penn Bay Hospital. And that is an ideal spot for a multi-use trail. We see people all the time, both walking and biking. The section right by Flatbread that needs some refurbishment, that section of sidewalk. How do we enhance that so maybe it could become multi-use? So we will have some conversations that we need to follow up with that. The other piece is the Aldermere project. There's a little more complication with that. Heidi is on it with the idea that there's a pathway that goes by.
She's here now.
I know.
Oh, but she's not talking. Okay, all right.
That we have the, a pathway. There's land easement issues and things like that, but that's adding to, so we have three things that are kind of on the Rockport piece. And then the other is, we look at, there is no pathway as you come up to Route 1 from where the old elementary school is, heading towards where Three Dogs was or where Bleecker and Greer is now. There's no walkway. And so we see people walking that area. And this may be an opportunity, particularly because some of that land is owned by Stuart Smith, that we can have some conversations with the hotel that's going in as an opportunity to increase some walking pathways, that there would sort of be a loop that would come around that little area and then go down, Union Street or Pascal Ave.
Pascal.
And that would be, and so those are the pieces that we talked about, sort of thinking that the linchpin right now is first just talking broadly with Patrick, and then we would set up and talk with Rockport people themselves. And it's mostly just to figure out how decisions are getting made that are not incorporating the broader vision of, realizing that we have this emerging outdoor economy, that we have lots of different socioeconomic people that need to have access to ways of getting around the mid-coast. And so we need to figure those pieces out.
You touched on Aldermere and briefly said that there were some other issues or something that have come up.
Heidi, do you want to
Heidi,
say?
you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah,
We're jumping around, but that's okay.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm in the barnyard. Let me just get back. Can you hear me now?
I could hear you.
Yes.
I could hear you fine. It's getting better though. The connection's getting better, so you're getting less jumpy.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like, I think I said it before when we started talking about it. As a manager of Aldermere, I really wasn't ready to have this be a project yet. And there was a lot of motivation, obviously, with some people in the town to start the conversation, which is great. It's just not, it's not where it needs to be on our end to sponsor it at this point, to make sure that we're doing what we need. But another big piece is the grading work that needs to be accomplished. And so right now, which is not in the budget in Rockport, which there are ways that we can possibly make that happen on the farm end. We are just trying to rearrange to see if we could rearrange our schedule so that we didn't do the fence next year, so it would buy us a little bit more time. So at this point, I would just suggest that we kind of stop conversations around with other partners or through the towns. I mean, if people have questions, I just kind of filter them through me at this point until we're ready for some better. I just don't want to jump into something that we're not ready for, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough. All I would say is touching back to our last discussion, Heidi, at the last meeting, is grants happen. Well, you know this too, but the particular grants I'm thinking of, they're due to submit in September. It's your only shot, and then they aren't awarded until the following March or so. So what I was tasked with was to talk to Rockport, although it is sort of a non-issue kind of here, that whether the town would be interested in going after an RTP grant for help with constructing the pathway, which could involve grading and other things too. So it could be a source. And what we established at the last call was Maine Coast Heritage Trust could be the ones going after that grant as well. But we still need to involve the town because I think with the RTP grants, you can only have one grant app per town.
Right.
And we just have to clear that Rockport doesn't have anything else that they want to go after during like say September 2021. And we get Aldemir or Maine Coast Heritage Trust up there to say, this would be a great thing, a great fit for the grant. We're not aware of any other project going on, but maybe there is, I don't know. Coastal Mountains, who knows?
Yeah,
How
no,
does that-
I think you're absolutely right. And I guess my hesitation, if I'm putting my Aldemir hat on, is that I'm not sure we're willing to take or even have the ability to take that side of the road, which is not part of the right of way, and extend it. And so I don't want to continue conversations and bring people in until I have things in place that I can,
Okay.
because I think it just gets frustrating when people want, have these grand ideas and then we
Heidi,
put a lot of them.
can I ask a question? So here we are in November of 20. Do you think that by March of 21, there might have been some conversations just to know whether it's a possibility or it's not even worth considering?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say by the end of February. There just needs to be things that are kind of put into place here first before we make those discussions.
Because that seems like a timeline we can work with. If there was a thumbs up, then March to September, we have grant writing time. And if it's thumbs down, then we move on.
Yeah. And I don't want to discourage anybody. I just also know that we are all busy and, let's make sure we have our ducks in a row before we jump onto something and then just, extend it for a long period of time and then it doesn't actually happen. So just give me a couple of months and then let's revisit it again.
Heidi, were you able to hear my synopsis of our conversation Sunday?
I heard the very end of it, but I'm sure it was fabulous.
No, I think it was, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
It was fabulous. So I guess one of the things, Heidi, to keep in mind is there's a 20% or 23% match, something like that, for the RTP, max of 50K, whether the town went for the app. If the town goes for the app, then that needs to go into the budget cycle for, well, it doesn't actually have to go. I don't know about that. The budget cycle starts now, and we need to have the select board be willing. Allison, this is kind of you
It can
too,
all
but
be
Rockport.
in kind.
Oh, that's right, in kind, in kind. But see, the good part is, yeah, it could be Heidi that would be the project manager, be being paid in kind, and you're donating your time between that and the town, Mike Young or something like that, or maybe even Public Works workers doing that. Okay, thanks, Allison, for reminding me about that.
Oh, I think they're waving at you, Mace.
Yeah, Mason, we're waving at you because there. Did you lose a tooth?
Yeah.
Yeah. When?
Couple
Yes.
weeks ago. Couple weeks ago.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Oh, a long time ago. Okay. All right.
Long time. Yeah.
Long time ago. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Heidi. Any questions? Any other filling in, Margot? Are you done with that? Your Rockport
Well, I
meeting?
think that is, unless there are any questions, but
I think my question was, I like the idea about meeting with Patrick Adams and talking and just saying, how can we do this? Can we do this? That's great.
well, I think Route 90 has so much, is so much of a linchpin in terms of connectivity. And it may be that, you know, one of the things we did discuss, and feeling so much more optimistic that there may be some money flowing in terms of both from our state as well as federal money, to put in, to think about transportation differently, just because of I think we're going to have a much more concerted effort around climate. And so it may be that we can start thinking differently about these main corridors, and it's not just about the big trucks being able to move stuff, but that it's also about, you know, people. But we have to wait and see.
Yep. Thank you. Next topic. Oh, and I would say, just as a footnote, sometime one of you should connect with Sarah Austin, just to say,
Yeah,
hey.
we actually discussed that as well.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Bike awareness. What falls under that is I did talk to Dave about putting advisory lane signs on Norwood, because Norwood is painted with advisory lanes.
Oh, it
And
is.
yeah, Norwood
Take a
is. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not long, but it's, you know, just to do a little bit of education on this. Norwood isn't long, but it's good because it's straight. It doesn't have any blind areas. You can see sort of the comings and goings about where you're driving. Unlike Mechanic Street, which sort of wanders and turns and has a lot of blind spots. Norwood is more like a country lane, which sort of fits the idea of advisory lanes a little bit. If you think about how the advisory lanes work.
You know, it's interesting because when you guys were first talking about this and you said Mechanic Street, I actually thought it was that straightaway from like right where kind of East Fork heads towards the Snow Bowl, and it's that straightaway. And it just seemed like, oh, that's a really ideal little place to let people practice.
That's not a bad place, but there is that hill. And there are, which is really blind, twice at the cemetery. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the part between,
you would know better.
Yeah, there's not a lot between East Fork and the beginning of that hill. So anyway, so I talked to him about signage, and he said he was going to order some signs, and then he started researching it. And what he found out was that the signs actually create, according to him, he says in the discussion sites that he looked at, that the signs actually create confusion. The ones that I think we all sort of looked at them. There's a lot of drawing and the dotted lines and the bikes and all this stuff. And he's moved to another place. And I don't think I disagree with him on this, is that if the lane, if it's sort of a country lane and you've got these two stripes on each side, it's sort of intuitive what's happening is the cars drive down the middle, and then when a car comes the other way, you move over. And I was thinking that the advisory lane signs might be a good educational thing. And but I could also go the other way. Anita, do you want to say something?
Yeah. Oh, you said you referred to he, but I didn't catch who the he was. Is that Dave St. Laurent? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So he didn't order signs. That's the bottom line. Dave didn't order signs, but he's open to listen to it and what to do. Any thoughts? He sort of said, if people don't know what to do, it might not be the appropriate road for an advisory lane, kind of. Andrew, do you have a thought?
It doesn't need to be.
Yes, it's a little confusing for some who don't know what's going on, I think, because one time I came onto Norwood and a car came off Route 1 and tried to go like right down the middle of the road and didn't realize that they were to cross the white line to get out of the way. I mean, I swerved out of the way, but.
Oh, that's right, because they didn't want to go outside the white lines.
Yeah, and it's not quite wide enough for two cars to pass right in the middle.
As it should
seems to
be.
me. Yeah.
It's not supposed to be.
So it's just confusing. So, a simple sign saying bike lane or share lane or something. Is that what Dave was going to get?
No, he was going to get one of the advisory signs that, they're about 2 foot by 3 foot. They go up on the side of the road and it explains how cars go down
Oh, right. Yeah.
the road.
Is this like
They
a
were in
big thing that would be at the beginning of both ends?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. And it's a lot. When I first saw it, it took me a long time to process what it said and what it meant.
Does it have a
And-
blinking light on it?
No, it's about the size of one of those. It's about 4 times as big as a no parking sign. Those little red and white signs. If you multiply that by 4, it's about that big. And it has a lot of information on it. It shows cars, it shows bike riders, it shows dotted lines. So it all gets pretty small. When I look at it for a long time, if you look at it in a presentation, it really makes sense. It's like, oh, that's a really cool
Hold on.
image. Are you pulling it up, Allison? I was just
Yeah.
going to do that. Yeah,
You
that's
think that
not
the-
it. It's,
Here,
I
if
think
you click
it's,
on that link there.
But it seems like
Can you see that?
there also has to be some community education, not just at the point of,
That's it. Kinda. It's kind of a lot to take in.
That makes sense.
It does, but imagine you're driving by it.
Right? You're not
Right.
seeing that if you're flying off of Route
You,
1.
you've never seen it before.
see, to me, it looks like it needs to have like red blinking lights all around it.
Does the town have the capacity to make a sign, like a simple sign that says share lane or bike lane?
Well, it just gets into so much stuff about, because bike lane has a very specific definition and these are not bike lanes. And then, so yeah, the town has lots of capacity to make signage and order signage and all the rest of it, should there be broad consensus about what the sign should say.
Yeah.
Let me just
Simple.
respond to, and then Anita, you can jump in. But if you go down the road of making a sign, you'll probably get to that sign that I just showed you, because that's the information you're trying to communicate. So just process that a little bit. Anita?
In reviewing that sign that you just put up, it occurs to me that given that we're talking about using it as an educational piece, as you mentioned, Jeff, and it's on Norwood, I actually think it would be a pretty darn good idea to put it up there on Norwood. Norwood traffic does not go by fast. It gives people time to look at it. They can slow down and take time to look at it. It's actually an ideal place right in town for education. So I feel like I'm in favor of having that sign up there. And, it gives people time to evaluate it. The flashing lights might be needed on Mechanic, but not on Norwood.
Andrew?
The way I see people coming off Route 1 very quickly, that sign would have to be, I don't know, down a little ways so that they can take it in. It's confusing when you turn off Route 1.
Yeah,
like-
it's actually good that they have those double yellow. I think that's a good start. I thought that was a really good idea of Dave's, and I told him. Margot?
I mean, it almost seems like instead of showing all that stuff, which you can't process when you're driving, period. That's good for public information, but it almost needs to be like a big sign that says single lane, share, something
Yeah,
like that.
Or share center lane. That's it.
Share center lane, single lane that is shared,
Share center lane. Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah,
Andrew, you have
share.
more?
Oh, just that sign actually, I think, would do a good job. It looks like it explains it really well. You just glance at it and should be able to take it in and process it.
I
Allison?
think share center lane is actually more confusing
Yeah,
to me than the sign, because the sign says you can cross over those lines that you're not used to crossing over and move over into that lane, but be careful. There's that caution sign. Be careful about bicycles. So to me, I looked at it and I actually understood it pretty quickly. So maybe different people have different takes on it. But the idea of sharing the center lane, I find more confusing, because it's like, we still can't go into the right.
Allison, then Margot.
So I wish I had tagged you in this thing. I've spent a fair amount of time talking with people about this, because there are some people that are just think it's one more example of how completely idiotic the town of Camden is. And so I've seen a few pictures of this new painting put up on Facebook and said, what is the town now? The town of Camden wants oncoming traffic to, it's supposed to be a game of chicken, or all kinds of comments. And honestly, some just like, people are just really, really mean. Like, really tired of talking to David Dickey about this stuff, but he's not the only ones. But so then, you know, I've seen, then a lot of people start commenting, and a lot of people find it like, oh, okay, great. But it's like there's literally nothing that will work for everybody, and you just kind of have to be at peace with that. I think I think people will have lots of problems with the sign too. The idea is just like, I don't know what most people will take steps to avoid a head-on collision. And so that's the idea when you're on Pearl Street and you see that there's not enough space, you adjust, you slow down, you figure it out. And so I really doubt that many, I'm interested by Andrew's comment, because if you found it scary and you think that this was the reason that car didn't want to get out of the way and thought they had the whole lane, I don't know if we're really going to overcome. I mean, a lot of that to me is somebody not looking, not paying attention to what's in front of them. And so it doesn't seem very likely that they're going to pay attention to a sign. But it does, I was totally on board with Dave not putting the signs up, because I do think you kind of just figure it out. But at the same time, maybe it would help just for, I almost want something that just says like advisory lanes, Google it. You know, to see, I want people to see the whole, like, oh, it's an effort to make things safer. It's but maybe it would, even just giving them something that like if it said advisory lane somewhere or some kind of thing, just for even the people walking that would know, oh, this is a part of a larger effort to improve pedestrian safety. Like, tell us what you think or something, or it would almost go just as far for people to know in some way that it's an intentional thing to see if it makes it better. I don't know.
Andrew, you're wiggling
yeah.
like you wanted to say something.
I'm curious, what is Dave's reservation about getting that sign? At least the sign would explain to everybody what's going on there. Just curious.
It does. His thing is that it's just, he says that a lot of people will be confused. And I have two comments on what Allison said. One is, no matter what you do, there are going to be people that make fun of it, that think it's a stupid idea, and if we put the signs up there, they're going to say, what the WTF? What are these? We supposed to process this when we're driving it? It's like, what are the, does anybody know what this sign's supposed to mean?
Maybe
that will happen. I guarantee you. Richard, you're laughing because it will happen.
But
And
so
they'll
Jeff,
say
maybe
that.
what the sign needs to say is slow, new traffic pattern. And then if you want to stop and actually see the sign that explains it, you can. But the bottom line is slow, new traffic pattern. And then, you know, here's the information for those that want to take a moment and think about it. But then there also does need to be some public education, which I know things went out, but, you know, to be able to say, this is the new pattern.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the other thing that, and Allison, I had thought of the same thing that you mentioned that I don't want to gloss over is, I think that for pedestrians, they'll stop and look at the sign and go, oh, cool. That's who's going to learn. And pedestrians are also drivers, a lot of them. And so they'll get it, and they're going to be the neighborhood there. And it may start the flywheel turning slowly of knowledge. And that was the outreach for information. I actually wasn't thinking that it would work for any drivers, but your idea, Margot, might do it. But usually people don't stop for anything when they're in their cars.
But, you know, to me, the big concern is like somebody, okay, they're bicycling home at night from work. And then there's some person who's like clueless about wanting to pay attention to this new traffic pattern. And now they're in conflict.
Hmm.
And so there needs to be, there needs to be some sort of shared both understanding and shared like the idea is that this, if, you know, this is a little tiny experimental site. Can people adapt? And so
Right.
what's going to help people adapt?
Richard, anything?
Well, I'll have to admit, I haven't even driven down Norwood since he painted the lines on it. Yeah, that's not a direction I usually go. So I've actually written a note here to at least go drive down the street and see what it looks like and behave.
Andrew, have you changed your mind?
I think anything would be better than nothing right now. Start the education process. Even that sign that I explained it really well in my eyes. If people can't understand that, maybe they shouldn't be driving. But it's a pretty basic sign. There's a
okay.
lot of signs out there that look like that.
It's a lot of information, I still think. All right.
Yeah, but it's better than
so-
nothing. People don't know what's going on. They need some direction.
For me personally,
Whoa, new traffic pattern.
I liked Margot's suggestion the best, which would be one new sign on each end that says slow new traffic pattern. And in the middle of the block would be two signs, one going each way. So it'd be 4 signs total. 2 of the signs would show the advisory lane signs, and then 2 of the signs would say slow new traffic pattern. And I think that's not bad. It's a lot of signs. And I think maybe eventually we'll take down the slow new traffic pattern sign, or we'll see. And just leave the 2 advisory lane signs up, 1 on each side.
Or the ideal is eventually you just say traffic advisory area. You know,
Advisory lanes, advisory lanes.
advisory lanes. And so people would know that, oh, that means this pattern.
Does that sound like, just give me a nod of the head? Is that like cool?
I'm good.
Doesn't really do any harm. There's no harm done with signage, I think. I think it's, except for that, I do think it'll create another round of people calling us stupid and saying, and that's fine. And we just need to not be afraid of that it'll create more questions. Whereas sometimes it just slides under the radar and you don't have to deal with it. And so maybe Dave's tired of that, but it really doesn't do any harm to have the signs, and it might help a lot of people. So
It might, it's part of, for me, it's part of the education process. And full confession here, I did not do any work on adding an educational component to the town website, but I will. I will. And also as a component of that, Linda had said that she'd help me put together a few sort of short press releases that will dribble out there. It's a combination of the advisory lane and the Sharrows thing, but we'll put it all on the website, but we'll dribble it out to the public in the papers slowly, closer to when Mechanic Street is for the Sharrows stuff. But we'll put it out there several times. So that's a full confession thing there. That's related. So moving from Norwood, anything else on bike awareness? Anita?
So if there were some way that the signage is phrased in such a way that it's apparent that this is, Camden is moving to incorporating bikes more safely, if there was some way of kind of indicating, I don't even know how you do this, that this is not about creating some weird thing just for Norwood. Camden is shifting towards safer pedestrian and bicycle ways. That's what you'd want to maybe see on the website or somewhere where people somehow can be made to understand that what's happening on Norwood is not Camden being weird. It's Camden experimenting with a new method of making safer bike and pedestrian ways and educating the folks about it. How would we do that, Allison?
I think that's the kind of thing that you could maybe brainstorm about some perfect verbiage offline, and then you could, if you come up with some, it's not about not being willing to do that. Like all of the things are possible. Putting things on the website, it's more just like the what and somebody actually doing it. So if you drafted something up and sent it around to the Pathways Committee, it could be and everybody felt good about it, then it could be or however you want to do it, the blog, it could be a blog post on the website. I could share it. The Town of Camden Facebook page actually has a pretty good following, and I can post things directly there. We can sponsor posts and have them, and actually get pushed out to, all Facebook users in the Camden area. And that's all easy to do. And it's just the creating of the content. But the Facebook thing is pretty good. I would just need some people to be prepared to, like once we posted something on Facebook, I kind of want to town staff doesn't have the bandwidth to be able to like comment back and forth on everything. So we would need, hope that people like
Moderators.
different Facebook users would be like prepared to kind of like jump in to some of the comments there. But it does reach quite a few people when you do that.
Can you mute again? Thanks.
Sorry.
Good discussion. Yeah. And I totally agree, Allison. I like the idea of pushing it out to Facebook page. That'll all be spun out of the content that would be on the website, and we would just use it as a push to get more eyes on it. Andrew?
Yeah, just a reminder, this is nothing new. I've been across this country on a bicycle, and Camden's kind of in the dark ages of signage for bikes and stuff. So many towns and cities have incredible bike lanes and paths. So it's nothing new out there. People are getting used to it very quickly, I think.
Yeah. We want to be there too. I totally agree. Thank you. Next item is Safer Routes Forum. That happened. I think Anita and I were the only ones there. Allison, you were there too?
Oh, I was like, what are you
The
saying?
second one, the Safer Routes.
The DOT,
Yeah,
is that what
yeah.
you called it?
This was more of what to do now. Action items in terms of identifying where safety issues exist. That was already established in the first forum. This was like, okay, what are we going to do about making pedestrians more visible at night? And what were going to be the top action items to make it safer for pedestrians. This was all about pedestrians. So I think the big takeaway was that there were a couple of priority items, and one of them was visibility. How to educate the public about being more visible and wear brighter clothes. Allison or Anita, do you remember what the other item? I think there were 3 items.
There was a good discussion about, about slap bracelets.
Yeah, but that's all about visibility.
Yeah, there was a lot of visibility stuff.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Slap bracelets and the Bicycle Coalition, was it the Bicycle Coalition of Maine that said they have a lot of them and they'd love to have sort of a positive outreach of giving out these highly reflective bracelets that just kind of wrap around your wrist or your ankle, that folks could even, people like us, volunteers, could carry them around with us. And
let me
give
just
them to
interrupt,
somebody.
Anita. Let me interrupt. I wasn't talking about the tactics. I was just talking about what the subjects were. The subjects were
Sorry.
visibility at night. What were the other 2? Do you remember, Allison, Anita?
I don't know. I'm not even sure about the 3 things. If you're sure, but I don't know that there were 3, but maybe.
Wait a minute, I just found my notes, hang on.
Oh, shoot, that reminds me, they were supposed to send me the recording so that I could post it on the YouTube channel. That, so that people could watch it and we could find out. That I need to do.
It was, yeah, that's it. There were two items. Nita, could you mute? One is dark clothing after dark, and the other one was distracted driving.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
and we were trying to figure out how to how to address the distracted driving. It was like, oh my gosh. No ideas about, well, there were ideas about it.
A horrific
But
video.
nothing super, yeah, it was a horrific video about showing how bad
Like,
bad things can get.
like in an instant, like that kind of thing where you look away for a second and then you look back up and it's just this horrible thing. And we're going to try to show that in schools. And Gretchen, the school nurse, was pretty active in the whole thing.
She was totally all over it.
Maybe it would just be good. We'll get the video up so that anybody that missed it can see it. And
That'd be fine.
then-
So basically, as Anita said, it was distribute reflective doodahs. And then the question was, how much can we ask the police to get engaged on this? And what would their role be? They have enough to do. It was like, maybe not. And the other one was positive reinforcement. Is there a way to somehow integrate positive reinforcement for doing the right things? Whether it's wearing the right stuff or not texting on your phone or something. And then the last part of it was, can we distribute that responsibility to everybody in the community? So to make it, all of us can give positive reinforcement somehow. I don't know. So that was it. That was it. Lots of good data.
If anybody wants slap bracelets now, we've had them at the town office for a long time, and we can get more. Yeah, I know, Mason. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a big
That's,
slap
that,
in here.
that was a little market survey right there.
Yeah, they're
So
also for hitting your brother.
also, also I think, and I'm going to interject it here. It's a couple lines down, but it appears that all of this data that was used in the forum is related to the pedestrian safety audit that Camden is doing. It showed where the crashes are, where the incidents are, where the pedestrian incidences are. I think this all has to do with the safety audit. Anybody know anything about that?
No, they've been doing it statewide. That's just the statewide database that they used to determine that Camden was a high priority area.
So it's not safety audit stuff.
Well,
It may be, but the
That-
town had to go jump through some hoops. Andrew, you remember this, about doing a safety audit. And I just thought that maybe it was a reflection of that
Yeah,
progress.
That's all stuff that you can get through the main state government. All
Right.
the data.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, then okay. So that's still on, Anita, I'm going to put that back on your plate to talk to Audra and say, where is the safety audit then? Where are we on the safety audit? They needed
So
to
I
do-
remember that they had said that there are certain hoops, as you mentioned, there are certain hoops we have to jump through as a town before we can receive grant funding to achieve the changes and improvements that we need to achieve. And the Safer Routes Forum, the two Safety Routes Forum forums were part of that whole scene, things that the town has to do. Yeah, so you want to know what we have to do next as a town?
No, that's great. I forgot about that the safety audits were a part of that process. That's good. Good. Okay, so that's another step that the forums were a part of that safety audit. That's cool. Cool. I'd forgotten about that, Nita. Thank you. Um, I guess it still is like, what's next? Don't know. Moving along. Any other questions on the safety routes thing? The safety routes, sorry, the forum, the safety forum, pedestrian safety forum, safer routes forum. The Rockport bond funds was on my plate. It still is. That is usage of the Rockport bond funds that we felt they were using for Rockville, but I was going to make it a bigger discussion. I have not connected. I have tried to, but I have not yet connected with Bill Post, the town manager. I will do that. It's still in process. He knows I want to talk to him. Likewise, the Camden downtown drainage, I actually contacted Mike Clark. It just happened to be the wrong Mike Clark. There are two. There's one that's still at MDOT, and there's this Mike Clark who is at this new private design, Kleinfelder, yeah. So he has a voicemail from me now, also from the guy who's still at MDOT, Mike Clark. So I'm supposed to say hi. So that's what to do. Alderman, we've done. The next one is AARP age-friendly designation. That's I'm sure that's on a list. That's on Anita's list of things to do, and it is there still. Let's see. Property owner incentives for bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Some reason I have your name next to that, Margot. This was a spin-off of the discussions of what tools a town could use to incentivize property owners where there would be property lost in order to allow pedestrians or bicyclists to cross their property. And I've read more about the only model that I know of, and I better understand it now than I ever did. And its limitations. I've always wondered how a town could incentivize somebody, and how King County did it in Washington State. And the way they did it was, if you donate your land or you sign an agreement with the town that says you will give the land to the town when the time comes that the town wants it, then you can start receiving a tax break for the taxes on that land today. Which sounds like, oh, well, that's kind of cool, except it's only like $60 or $70 a month, a year, sorry. There's not a lot of land needed. And so the tax is collected on a strip of land 30 feet wide by 100 feet is not that great. And so the incentive is not huge. But if a town, say on the Riverwalk, a property owner did that and we didn't get to their property for 10 years, that would be $600 or $700. So that's something. And the town
Jeff,
can
have
do.
there been conversations already with either Coastal Mountain Land Trust or with Georges River Land Trust about how they do their partnerships with landowners to get trails and to get, it almost seems like that would and maybe that's where this came from, which I completely forgot. And maybe that's the question, like, how do you partner with private and public interests together?
So Coastal Mountains Land Trust buys land. That's how they do it.
But that's not necessarily how Georges River Land Trust does it.
That's not necessarily how Georges River Land Trust does it. They buy land, but they also And this is Dave Getchell, Senior. And I talked to him about how the heck did you do this, Dave? And Dave Getchell said, I just knocked on everybody's door and had a gentleman's handshake that said, sure, you can do this. You can do a trail way on the back 40. That's fine. That's it. At any time, that person, that landowner could say, not anymore.
But not if it was put under easement then. And that's the whole idea, like an easement. And that's
Well,
where,
Dave Getchell said they did not, in fact, put it under easement. Now, it
but
may have
no,
happened
I think
later.
Net Nagel or somebody who actually does some of the easement procurement would be somebody worth having a conversation with. And I'm happy to reach out to Annette.
My understanding is regarding the easement, it's just what I said. So if you put an easement on your property, Margot, in your backyard, you put an easement 30 feet wide by 100 feet long or whatever it is, it's 3,000 square feet. What's the property value of 3,000 square feet at your location? And what are the taxes on that? And that's what your savings would be. And that's all the town is allowed to give you. And that's what Georges River Land Trust sells as the benefit.
It is, but they sell a lot more. They sell the idea of being able to give back to the public good. And, you know, there's more to it than just your few dollars and cents. And so really that's the bigger question, because, you know, probably 60, 70 bucks a year is not going to be an enticement. So because they have really been successful.
Okay.
So,
yeah, find out. Talk to Annette.
Okay. I can do that.
Anita?
So my question is whether it is which governing entity must grant permission for a change in the property tax structure. If our town of Camden or the town of Rockport came up with an incentive structure that we wanted to propose that relates to a reduction of property taxes, do we need to get permission from the state in order to set up that structure? Or is it simply something that the town could do their own thing? Do you know that?
There are tools already, if you can mute, there are tools already, and it's called an easement. When you put an easement on a property, you are giving the rights to develop that land, and you're giving that easement to somebody. And when you do that, the town can reduce the property tax because the easement is being held by the town to the benefit of the town. That already exists, Anita. The question is whether, I know it. You just remember the process we just went through for Shirt Tail and the easements we got on that for the right of way, and that negotiated like how much is the value of that easement. It's the same thing. The town can only do so much, and they're constrained by laws, so that you don't have a town giving $1 million to one person just because the town manager owns the property, like it would happen in another country, perhaps. Okay, moving along. I think we're almost done here.
Good.
Yes, we are done. Unless somebody has something, and I think Allison wants to do a parting quote or something. Go ahead, Allison.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't request to have this on the agenda, but I know that Pathways has been interested before in access to GIS layers and trail maps and how we could integrate all of that. And some of my dreams may be coming true in Camden because Audra is actually really interested in this too. And we are, tomorrow actually, we are meeting. We've been having some meetings about just our assessing database and the GIS system that we use and why there are so many problems with, just when you want to be able to download shape files so that we can have all the town roads and make, the perfect map of all the town roads and all these things. And it's just been a subject of great frustration. We're currently mapping out all of the storm drains. And they've allowed me to be a part of that, which has given me like editor privileges for some of the databases. And Audra's been on a push to try to make all the data that we have public, because there's a lot of, even just like the sewer system and there's a lot of data that the town has that there's no reason it can't be public, and it's helpful sometimes. So I started to make more of it public, but we're encountering a few limitations with Axis GIS or CAI, which is what we use. And so we are meeting tomorrow with an expert from, her name is Leticia Van Buren, I think, and she's from Knox County. Knox County Emergency Management, and she does a lot of the, she's really knowledgeable, and she's working on kind of doing more of a regional approach to this. Unfortunately, she's, I think, a little bit, she could be doing a lot more if she had a little bit more, support and vision probably from county government. But she's available as a resource to the towns. And so she's going to try to help us tomorrow figure out exactly what we need if we wanted to be able to make all of these different kinds of things public. And so what I'm supposed to be doing is kind of giving her scenarios for like, hey, we might want to be able to do this or that. And she's going to say, your existing system would be good enough for that, or not. We're looking at, I don't know how familiar everybody is with any of this, but possibly switching over, doing a townwide switch to ArcGIS rather than this system that we have now, which was really designed to be kind of an intermediary between. ArcGIS used to just be so complicated that people couldn't really use it. And so they designed all these tools for towns to be able to update these databases. And but it creates a lot of obstacles for sharing data and importing and downloading new layers. And so it may be that now that ArcGIS has really gone into this new mode of trying to make it easy for people to add data in the field and make all of their products reachable, we may switch to that. And we're also kind of looking at maybe a larger vision of how we could be supportive of the effort to regionalize some of this so that all of this data that is stored in different places. If you've ever tried to look at like the Camden system and the Rockport system, if you want a trail that goes through both, you have to pull this stuff up on two different screens and go back and forth. And, wouldn't it be great if we all kind of talked to, if this were all kind of in the same place. So
that was the vision of that summit, which
exactly. Yeah. And so Audra's really supportive of this. And so it's going to be me and Audra and Carrie Leishman, the town assessor, who's of course shared by Rockport too. So that's good. And he said that he had intentionally chosen a different system in Rockport as well, partially just to see which was better. So he's going to be at the meeting too. And I didn't know if there were specific things that came to mind that you wanted to make sure of. Of course, I'll bring up all that I can remember about like trails and, wanting to be able to create maps and, import data from Maine Coast Heritage Trust and all these different places and have, layers that are, maybe viewable only to, these would be viewable to the public, but then we could have another layer that would be like the only viewable for Pathways members, like the working vision one, or different scenarios like that. But if there's something that you wanted specifically for me to bring up.
So I'll go around and you guys can process that.
You could also just send me an email to like at any point tonight or
That's a good idea.
First thing in the morning if there's something specific. And
my brain is in the shutdown.
Shutting down. Yeah. I think the one for me, Allison, is you mentioned it, but just to narrow it a little bit is to add non-existent information to existing information is very difficult. So everything that has been mapped into what is it called? ArcGIS? No, it's not called ArcGIS.
It was
or
No,
open
no, the existing one, the
It's the
existing.
one that your
database.
son
access.
showed you.
Access
No,
CAI? You mean the
no,
one?
no,
that-
no, 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 Margot, hang on. No, the access is what the town uses. So if you want to add a sidewalk, a planned sidewalk, there's no way to do it because it only deals with what exists. And so it doesn't talk about the what ifs.
So
So
like a
at the
planning
summit, at the planning layer, at the summit, everybody was saying, is there a way to communicate what your plans are? And the answer was no, because they're all doing it on backs of piece of paper or drawing on existing maps. Anita wanted to show a status of existing bicycle infrastructure and what was needed. And so she could only show existing, but not what was needed. So she had to draw it on hand and put it on Mylar above the existing. Because if you input data into the database, that means it's data and it exists. So, a planning layer would be good. The other one was, and a way to share that. I think
there are
that's
towns
the biggest one.
There are examples of towns that have a layer that you can turn on, which is future planning. I mean, it's
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
The other
So the
thing I know people were interested in, like, there may be a pathway, but like, what kind of pathway? Is it just walking? Or
Oh,
can I put a-
attributes.
Absolutely. Can I
That's
put a
the word.
stroller? Can I put,
Yeah.
or can a bicycle go on it? So actually kind of quantifying. So even
Yeah.
like going down Route 1 and those big wide breakdown lanes, are they legal, can I walk a stroller down Route 1 with a,
Yeah.
so
That was in the open database that I was showing you. That was a
Maybe
particular
something about
feature,
even
which was
like
really cool.
user
and-
generated data. Like, so if people, ways for people to be able to put things in, so it would be like community generated. That it
That's,
wouldn't have to just be
yeah.
like, tell this town staff person to add this, which is, it'd be nice if people could input things.
And the other thing, Allison, just to consider, I mean, even though Island Institute kind of focuses on island communities, it actually focuses also on coastal communities. And there may be some natural resource attributes that to collaborate a little bit, so I'm thinking about all the work with anadromous fish. And, these are pieces of that can easily be added into an ArcGIS world that then once you have all these different layers, lots of questions you can start answering because you've got the data in there. So the versatility of being able to add, even things you may not see as important or related, so versatility, I guess, would be one of those pieces, which I think GIS or ArcGIS is, really is I'm getting extremely excited with the idea because even from a teacher point of view, if we had the access to what's going on in the town and kids could start accessing it. I mean, I have no idea what kinds of questions could be asked, much less what kind of problems could be solved.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're excited.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I think you got it. Anybody want to add anything else? You can email Allison. And that's all I've got. Andrew, were you going to say something? I thought I saw you.
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
All right.
This,
Okay. Any objection to adjourning? Thanks for mentioning that, Allison. It was totally appropriate to bring it up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
See you
everybody.
guys.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks, Allison.